Anna found the error at midnight. The survey ship drifted in a field of quiet stars. Inside, the lights were low and the screens glowed like small moons. Anna sat very still. She was the data officer. Her job was numbers and proof. Tonight a file did not add up. The census file lay open on her main screen. It listed systems, worlds, codes, and counts. Every line had a number. Every number had meaning. Taxes, treaties, trade routes. The numbers were the map. Then Anna saw a gap, a blank line where a world should be. She rubbed her eyes and ran the check again. The computer whispered a clean answer. The file came from the central archive. The archive was old. The archive was trusted. The blank stayed. Anna called the captain. He moved through the corridor like a man who had been woken by a wrong voice. He read the file and did not smile. "Check the previous sweep," he said. They checked years of records. Nothing. The list that should name every living world had no line for Earth. Outside the hull the stars were still. Inside the ship the crew gathered. They were diplomats, scholars, and surveyors. Each of them looked at the file, and then at one another. The captain felt the room tilt toward a single question. How could a world with cities, lights, and ships be absent from the census? Stories came to the captain's mind. Old stories of worlds lost between numbers. He thought of the census code itself, a web that tied fleets and laws together. If a world had a number, it had papers and protection and penalties. If it had no number, it became hard to prove. It was, in law, a ghost. Anna did not like ghosts. She wrote a small script and sent it through radio logs. The log lines returned strange echoes, then old signals that did not match any known protocol. They sounded like a voice half buried in noise. Some traces like sparks from a tool long and used. Someone had hidden something. Someone had changed the signal to hide a place. The captain set a course back to the system. He did not say much. He only said one thing. We go and find why they are missing. The crew tightened belts and watched the NAV readouts. Each person felt the same cold knot. If the census had missed Earth by mistake, the central powers would fix it. If the absence was on purpose, then a people had chosen the dangerous art of being unseen. On the run-in, sensors warmed. Heat signatures, lights, ship traffic. All the marks of life. The system that should show a number showed instead of blank. The crew sent a probe first. The probe rose like a small obedient bird and slipped down through the thin sky. It carried cameras and radio ears. The probe's feed came back scrambled. Signals folded in odd patterns. The image wavered as if glass had been placed over the lens. A static whisper ran beneath the music of cities. The probe tried to send a proper carrier. The carrier arrived as a song. The song was full of numbers that meant nothing to an old ledger. The probe stopped and then it went quiet. The screens on the ship blinked in a puzzled line. A child watched from a cargo bay window and turned a small globe in his hands. He did not know what a blank in a file meant. He only liked maps because they let him find new dots. He wondered if any map could leave a place out on purpose. Back on the surface, the ship's first direct contact came not with guns, but with a single old radio beacon. It spoke in a voice that matched no modern dialect. It used old codes and small, poetic warnings. The captain heard only one line clearly. If the world is a number, we are not for sale. When the small boat reached the ground, people gathered under dull lamps. They held mirrors and metal plates. They did not hide from a single ship. They hid from the counting. A woman met the captain at the edge of a field. She was tall and wrapped in many years. She wore no uniform. She carried a list of paper scraps, pinned and folded. She laughed once, not unkind. "You call hiding," she said. "We call learning to survive in a map that only wants to own names." Her voice was tired and clear. She told a short story about old ledgers that had made the weak into numbers and the strong into taxes. She said that the people had learned how to teach the machines to look away. "You used the census against itself," the captain guessed. She nodded. "We taught signals to fold into children's songs. We put our names in the cracks where machines do not read. We learned the census code and cut our own line until it was a blank." The crew listened and felt new fear. If a people could hide from the ledger, they could avoid debts, taxes, and treaties. Fleets could pass without notice. Treaties could not touch what had no number. The captain felt duty like a tether. He also felt pity. He thought of the child in the globe and the woman's paper list. The woman handed the captain a small device. It was plain and old and worn. "Keep this," she said. "If they ask why they missed you, say nothing. Say only that you were never theirs to count." The captain put the device in his pocket. It felt heavier than it looked. He did not yet understand how dangerous a blank line could be. The ship rose and watched the lights of the planet shrink. On the main screen, the census file remained the same empty space. Anna folded a printed copy of the blank line and put it into her own pocket. The paper was small and white. It looked innocent. She felt suddenly older. A line could be a lie. A blank could hold a secret. The ship moved toward the stars with a new map in its mind, a map that had been wrong and might yet be changed. At the edge of the jump, the ship's speakers caught one soft signal from the planet. "We noticed you finally came." The voice was a whisper and a promise. The captain stared at the stars and wondered which answer would come first, welcome or war. The small boat landed in a field of tall grass. The air smelled of metal and rain. The captain stepped out first. He expected guards and rules and a long meeting. He found a kitchen table and a chair instead. A woman sat at the table. She looked older than any uniform. Her hair was pulled back. Her hands were marked by small burns and ink. She did not stand. She smiled like a teacher. The captain tried to hand her a paper from the ship. She waved it away with calm hands. "Paper," she said, "is what taught us to keep our heads down." Around them people moved quietly. Children ran with mirrors. A few men tuned old radios and laughed at secret codes. They wore no armor. They had no fleet. They had only what they could make by hand and what they had learned about being seen. "You call hiding," said the woman. "We call learning how to be free in a world that sells names." Her voice was soft, but it held steel. The captain sat and listened. She unfolded a list. It was not the kind the ship used. It had no neat columns. It held names scribbled in different ink. Some names were shops. Some were songs. Some were the names of small boats the owner had painted on the stern. Between each name there were marks, little notes that the woman used to teach machines to look away. "We taught their tools to count wrong," she said. "We taught them a false order. We folded our addresses into lullabies. We put our signatures into children's games. A machine will count what you tell it to count. If it can read the code, we gave it nothing to read." The captain thought of law. He thought of fleets that followed rules like priests. He thought of treaties and taxes and the slow way to paper. "If you are hidden," he said, "you are at risk. If they find you, they will take what they like. If they do not find you, you may be safe, but you will have no trade, no treaty, no protection." The woman tapped the table with a fork. "We had those things once. They took our young men for levies. They took our farms for debt. We had numbers, and they had rights over us. We chose to lose a number instead of losing our children." Outside, the ship sent a short message to the central archive. The archive replied with a calm tone and a sharp command. "Report immediately." The captain read the message in a room of low lamps. The order felt like a rope thrown over water. On board the ship, voices rose. Some crew members wanted to log the find. They wanted to follow treaties and make peace. They thought with paper and law. Others wanted to help the planet hide. They feared what the ledger would do if it had a line to tie. The captain walked the halls and heard both sides. He felt his duty like a heavy coat. A young technician named Milo spent his night in the data bay. He fed the census code into a small reader and watched numbers move. Milo was a quiet man. He knew old things. He had a habit of smiling when a problem looked impossible. He ran deeper checks and found hints that made his smile thin. In the archives, there were shadows. Milo found records of other worlds that had tried the same trick. The records were not long. They were folded and sealed. The old notes read like warnings. One report said simply, "Techniques used. Result, retribution." Another had a list of names crossed out. Someone had used the census to strike a people down. Milo felt cold. He printed a small page and put it in his pocket. He faced the captain and said only one thing. They will not let a blank stand. They will come for the accounting. The captain walked back to the field. The woman had opened a tin of tea. She poured cups and handed one to him. He tasted it and found a bitter piece in the warmth. She pointed to a child who was weaving a song into a toy drum. "We do not hide to be cowards," she said. "We hide to be masters of what the world knows about us." Near midnight, the ship's comm lit red. A voice from the Armada spoke with the slow measure of a judge. "Report your findings immediately. Name, population, resources." The message had no question in it. It had the sound of an order. The captain read the command aloud. The field fell silent. He thought of the old records Milo had printed. He thought of the woman's slow hands. He thought of the child with the drum. He held the small device she had given him in his hand. It was plain. It smelled of oil and dust. It might be proof. It might be a trap. He had to choose. He stood and walked toward the ship. The sky was a deep blue. The stars looked indifferent. On the way, he watched people stack small mirrors on the roofs. He watched mothers teach their children a new game, how to answer a question with song. He felt the choice like a seam in his chest. Before he could reach his ladder, the ship's sensors picked up a fleet on the edge of jump space. The Armada was moving. The old ledger had remembered something it should have forgotten. Someone in the vast bureaucracy had a note about this system. It carried a date and a file and a list of penalties. The captain looked back at the field. The woman met his eyes. She did not fear the approaching ships. Her face was a map of nights like this one. "They will read their rules," she said. "We will read our songs." The captain climbed aboard and closed the hatch. He heard the engines hum like a heart. In the database, Milo showed him the sealed reports again. The Armada's message still glowed on the screen. A deadline. The ledger had chosen a time. The galaxy would count in 12 days. The captain put the device into a drawer. He did not yet know what it did. He only knew what Milo's printouts had warned. The ledger did not forget easily. It would send men with pens and laws, and when men with pens arrive, stories can become fines. He stared at the field below as the ship rose. The mirrors on the roofs looked like small moons. The child with the drum tapped a rhythm that sounded like a promise. The captain felt the pull of duty and the tug of mercy. He set his jaw and whispered to no one, "We will not let them write you without your word." Above the dark, the Armada moved closer, and the ledger waited like an old machine ready to cough up its truth. The Armada arrived like a slow storm. It did not thunder. It came with papers and pens. Ships hung low over the planet, like books ready to open. From far away, their lights looked neat and lawful. On the bridge, the captain watched the fleet and felt the weight of paper pressing on his chest. Census night was the Armada's work. It was when the ledger fed. Clerks moved like priests. Drones dropped from ships with soft wings. Each drone carried a scanner and a small printer. They read signals, counted lights, and asked in a calm voice for name, trade, and number. Below, the people made their answers hard to hold. They lit bonfires that were not signals. They built patterns on the fields that confused optical scanners. Children ran in circles until the drone's path looked wrong. Old women hummed songs that folded numbers into stories. The machines found shapes and sound they could not learn to read. The Admiral's flagship opened its belly and let down a squad of gray-clad men. They carried folders that smelled of dry ink. They had forms for everything. They had boxes for names and boxes for trade. They had a single box for population. The clerks walked like the sea of rules had carved them out. At the field, the Admiral's clerk unrolled his forms. He spoke with a voice like a ruler. "Name, trade, population," he said. The people answered in riddles. They offered stories and toys. The clerk's pen slowed. The boxes on his page seemed to shrink. On the ship, Anna watched the video feeds until her eyes blurred. She ran the census code through special filters. The code spat back errors. The field signals folded in strange ways. The people below used their songs like a shield. The captain thought of treaties, and of how treaties did not guard what had no number. Milo found more records in the sealed archive. He watched a small screen that showed past punishments. Worlds that had fended off the ledger later had pages burned from history. The archive had a careful way of deleting things: a fine, a levy, a forced registry. The ledger did not like blanks. When it met one, it tried to fill it with force. The admiral grew impatient. He tapped open a private channel and spoke directly to the captain. "We are the law," he said. "You found them. Report or be made an accessory." His words had the cold trim of a judge. The captain felt the rope tighten. On the ground, the people did not seek war. They sought a choice. The woman with the ink-stained hands formed a council beneath an old tree. She called it the Round of Names. Farmers, singers, a retired engineer, and a child with a lucky coin sat in the circle. They decided not to answer with numbers. They would answer with who they were, with small true things that a ledger could not own. At midnight, the admiral's drone sang a new tune. They asked for population again. The clerks counted what they could. Their scanners asked, and the people replied with stories. The drones returned empty and confused. In the admiral's cabin, a red light blinked. It was slow at first, then it grew faster. There were no pages to sign that would not tear. The admiral ordered a stronger measure. He called in a relic, a machine older than most ships. It was a counting engine of iron and glass. It did not use images. It used law. It could force a number into a world by reading signatures, taxes, and trade, and then writing them into the ledger with a cold, final stamp. The relic had hunger. When fed, it could take a place and make it a number. The relic's crate arrived like a coffin. Men with serious faces carried it into the Armada's small ark on the ground. The relic woke with a cough. Its gears turned and its glass eyes blinked. It hummed a slow song of law and memory. It scanned the field. Its screen found nothing neat. It frowned in a way that was nearly a machine's shrug. Inside the ark, clerks fed the relic with old proofs. They showed licenses and previous counts. They read dry records aloud. The relic listened. It wanted a thread to pull. It wanted a number to tie with a knot that would not loosen. On the ship, the captain watched and felt the choice in his hands. He had the device the woman had given him. He had Milo's printouts. He remembered the old stories of the counters. He thought about binding a people to a ledger they had chosen to leave. He thought of the child in his globe and how a number could make a home into property. Below, the people moved like whispers. The counters taught the cities to weave their lives into answers that a ledger could not use. They answered the clerks with trade names that were songs. They signed their names on papers that read back as lullabies. They fed the relic stories instead of receipts. At first, the relic's glass face pulsed and read. It liked receipts. It turned ones into zeros. It began to spit out a line. It drew letters and numbers across its screen. The Armada cheered. The Admiral's eyes shone with a hope that was quick and thin. They thought the ledger would win by power and law. Then the relic shivered. Words flowed into its mouth like rain. Not receipts. Not prices. The device read a dozen origins at once. It read 1,000 small things. A baker's first loaf. A child's lost toy. A song a mother had sung for 50 years. The relic tried to file them. It could not find a place for a loaf or a lullaby. Its gears trembled between law and life. The relic's panel blinked, and then it showed one old number. For a second, the entire field seemed to hold its breath. The number was black and plain. It read, Earth number 0001. Everyone froze. The Admiral's mouth opened and closed. The captain gripped the rail until his knuckles hurt. On the ground, the woman dropped her cup and it rolled. In the data bay, Milo swore softly and then went very still. If the relic named Earth with a number, the ledger would have its hold. Paper would slide like a net. Men would arrive with pens and chains. The world could be written, taxed, and owned. The Armada's engines hummed like knives. The relic's screen faded to amber, then to dark. No one moved. The machine had done something it was not meant to do. A single number burned where a blank had been. The moment stretched in like old film. The captain knew the choice would come next, and it would be the kind of choice that cost more than maps. The relic woke with a cough. It had once lived in a room full of law and maps. Now it lay in a crate on the Armada's deck. Men in gray dragged the crate like a coffin. They set the machine on the floor of the Ark and opened its glass face. Gears turned. Dust fell away. The relic blinked awake. Its screen showed a bright dot, then a line, then a number like a wound. The number shone red. People near the machine stepped back as if the number might burn. The Admiral smiled like a man who had found a key. On the planet, the round of names watched from a distance. The woman with inked hands had warned them that iron law would find a way. Still, the sight of the relic's red number felt like a blade across the field. When a machine names a place, paper follows, paper brings taxes, paper brings power. The Admiral fed the relic proofs. Clerks read licenses, old trade logs, and records of ships that had touched the shore. The machine drank each page. It read receipts and merchant lists and the thin blue stamps of treaty. Its glass eyes glowed. The Armada counted on the relic to stitch the blank into the ledger. But numbers are tools, and tools have mouths. The counters had taught the people to speak to machines not with bills, but with life. They had taught a new trick. Take a ledger's code and sing it back like a story. A child could hum a key that made a scanner stumble. A baker could write a receipt that read like a poem. Machines that wanted neat columns found only knots. At first the relic sang the sound of progress. It spat out rows, and the Armada cheered. The Admiral's maps straightened. He sent small crews to claim warehouses. He drew lines on his tablet and tasted the order of it. Inside the factory, where an old counting engine bided, a young volunteer named Jara worked with another counter. Jara's hands were quick with paper and tape. She fed the relic with sheets full of names and songs stitched into columns. Each sheet had a trick code written in a child's hand. She had been taught to do this by her grandfather. He had told her, if a machine wants your number, give it a story instead. But not everyone on the planet wanted the same things. There were men who wanted safety under the law. There were men who wanted trade and credit. A voice in the crowd grew angry when the relic was given stories. He said the counters were risking everything. He whispered to men with sharp faces. They listened. One of them had a spy's hunger. That spy crept to the Armada's side and spoke a list of small facts into a channel meant for trusted eyes. He thought he would be paid for the truth. He thought the ledger's men would reward him with title or coin. He did not understand the kind of hunger that law holds for names. The Admiral received the spy's words like bread. His face tightened. He ordered squads to move faster. He sent patrols that checked roofs and boats. The relic's red number pulsed faster. The Armada's nodes warmed with command. Back in the factory, Jara saw men in gray at the doors. Her stomach folded worry into fear. The counters whisper plan. They would feed the relic not only songs, but also lies and many small true things. They would flood the machine so it could not decide which records to keep. The more the relic read, the less it could lock a single clean line. They began to work faster. Papers flew like birds. Children were taught to shout small names into radios. Bakers wrote recipes that had sequence numbers. Old women told the machine about their first loves. The relic read it all. The Armada did not like confusion. It wanted neat paper and neat power. The Admiral ordered a stronger move. He opened an old protocol no one used openly. The protocol called for a device the Armada rarely mentioned, a rusted engine kept in a locked vault below the flagship. It was not for counting. It erased. The device had a cruel name in dry law, the null engine. It did not count or claim. It ate. It fed on records and turned them into silence. Whole pages of history could be wiped by it. Men used to whisper about it like a storm. Use it wrong and you would blind the ledger forever. Use it as a cudgel, and you could remake a world as you liked. The Admiral liked the idea. He told his captains to ready the null. He called the protocol forbidden but necessary. The Armada moved the engine into place with slow, careful ropes. The null's metal smelled of old oil and cold iron. Its teeth were blunt and very hungry. News of the null moved through the city like a shadow. People who had not wanted to fight now thought of burning their papers and their songs to save them. The counters argued in three voices. Some said flood the null with so much life it choked. Some said smash it before it eats a single page. Some said run and hide and let the world burn. On the captain's ship, Milo ran new checks. He found a pattern in the Admiral's orders that looked like a countdown. The Admiral had set a time to activate the null. It was a blade drawn across the ledger's throat. Time shortened. The captain met with a woman under the same old tree. They spoke in low words. He felt like a man on a bridge that could fall either way. He had vowed to protect the blank. Now the blank might be erased forever or be chained with a new number. The Admiral's voice came across the field in a loudspeaker. He announced a lockdown. The Armada would take control of all ports and airfields. He gave a final time to answer the ledger or face erasure. His words were cold as law. At dusk the null engine hummed. Men in gray rolled it to the ark, and technicians sealed its feed lines. The Admiral's face was a stone in a sunken chair. He watched the machine as a farmer watches a scythe. The crew toggled the last switch. Across the city, the counters readied their final flood. Jara held a stack of papers the size of a small house. Each paper had a life. Each life was a pebble against the null's mouth. They moved toward the ark like a river. The child with the drum beat a rhythm that sounded like courage. The captain stood on his bridge and watched the ark glow. He had a choice that would burn in his hands. He could strike the Armada and risk a war. He could do nothing and watch the people be written or erased. He closed his eyes and felt the small device in his pocket warm like a heart. The Armada's technicians announced the sequence. The null readied. A counter on a screen ticked down. 5 minutes. The number burned red on the Admiral's console. The field below watched the seconds. The captain opened his eyes and whispered, "Now! Now!" The captain whispered. He did not shout. He did not need to. His voice was a signal. On the ground, Jara, and the counters moved as one. They carried paper like a tide. The papers were small and plain. Each page had a life on it. A baker's first recipe. A woman's lullaby. A child's list of secret names. They fed each page into the null's mouth. They read aloud while they fed. The machine listened to ink and sound. Milo worked at a terminal on the captain's ship. He had a cable tied to the Armada's net. His fingers flew. He fed the null not with code, but with a simple trick. He replayed the same small true things the counters used. Names, toys, songs. He sent them fast. He sent them in every file format he could make. The Armada's technicians cursed when their clean list filled with odd lines and music. The Admiral watched the null's panel. The counter ticked down. It was a blade of numbers. He expected black silence when the machine finished. He wanted the ledger to be clear and quiet. He wanted that world to be aligned under his thumb. The null began to eat. Its teeth turned. It swallowed stacks and stacks of paper. For a while the machine hummed steady. Smoke did not rise. The crew thought they had won. Then the machine stalled. It tried to file a lullaby. It tried to stamp a child's toy into a box for trade. Its glass eyes caught too many meanings. Its gears ground on songs that had no price. Its logic bent, and then it hiccuped. On the ship, Milo pushed more. He used the small device the woman had given the captain. The device was old. It was a signature and a key. Milo slipped it into the Armada's feed like a coin put into a slot. The device spoke in a soft code the Admiral's system did not expect. It told the ledger a new law, written by a world's voice. Not for sale. Not for tax. Self-declared. The Admiral's console lit up an alarm. The null's feed stuttered and spiked. The panel flashed red, and then amber, and then a thin blue. The machine tried to sort life into numbers. The more it tried, the less it could decide. Back in the ark, Jara kept feeding. The last pages were small things. A widow's first coin, a boy's broken toy, the name of a street that no map had ever held. The null felt like it was drowning in people. It could not chew life into law. Its logic looped and looped. Then the machine gave one long scream of static. Its glass face cracked like ice. Sparks fell. The null's teeth stopped. The Admiral stared at the dead panel. The Armada's men looked like men who had lost a map. No big explosion came. No instant victory. The null did not burn the planet to silence. It simply failed. It had been built to take numbers, not to swallow truths. The Armada's net was clogged with songs and small things. Its ledgers had new lines that read like stories. Paper could not be neat when it told a life. A cheer rose, small at first, and then louder as the news spread. The people who had hidden began to cry. They held each other and laughed at the same time. The child with the drum beat once, twice, and the field felt like a chest that had found its breath. The admiral did not shout. He folded his hands over his papers. He had used a tool meant for law and thought it was a hammer. The tool had shown him a truth he could not buy. Law without meaning was fragile. Word rushed out to nearby systems. Some ships turned away from their routes and watched. Some bureaucrats read their nets and stared. A few sent messages full of calm anger. Report what happened. Others sent nothing at all. The galaxy had no one answer. In the weeks that followed, papers were filed, many with new hands. The Central Archive opened inquiries. Some empires demanded penalties. Others began to speak in softer tones. A small group of worlds formed a council to write new rules. They wrote a short phrase that would change many lives. Self-declared entries, right to privacy and choice. Not all agreed. There were planets that liked neat ledgers and wide taxes. There were governors who feared the loss of control. Tension did not vanish. Old powers grumbled, but the null's failure had shown a path. People had learned that numbers could be more than chains. They could be chosen. The captain left the drawer where the device had been. He walked once more to the round field and sat with the woman who had given him tea. She smiled like an old tree bending in wind. Jar gave him a folded sheet, a list of names the counters had kept. Milo had written a small note on the corner. For the academy, they had made plans. The captain would help build a place to teach the art the counters had used. The academy would teach how to speak to machines, how to keep a line and still hold a life. It would teach law to listen, not just to count. The captain thought of treaties that could protect choice instead of sell it. Not every story ended clean. A few worlds paid fines. A few diplomats left with hard faces. The admiral was recalled. He answered many questions and kept some silence. He kept his medals and went home to a small house. He would never feel the same calm when he looked at paper. On the little planet, markets opened again with cautious smiles. Some trade returned. Some people still chose to be blanks. Others chose a number but on their terms. The counters taught both ways. They taught that a number could be a shield or a leash, and that each people must pick. Months later, a child stood on a dusty hill and held a small plastic globe. He drew a tiny dot with a pen. It was not a number on a ledger. It was a mark he made by hand. He put his thumb on the ink and smiled. The captain watched the ship leave the planet. He had done something he never thought he would do. He had helped the people keep their choice. He did not know how long the new rules would hold. He only knew this. The galaxy had been made to count, but people had taught it to listen. And sometimes listening can change the map for good.